Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. तो ये हाइलाइटेड वाला पार्ट पढ़ लिया था ना? अच्छा. By devotional service, one has to become. By devotional service, one has to become Vasudeva Parayana, a devotee of Lord Vasudeva, Lord Krishna. In other words, we have to learn how to become lovers of Vasudeva. In the world, if the world takes up this Krishna consciousness, the planet is certain to be peaceful. Now, the earth is quickly becoming a hellish planet, and if this Krishna consciousness is not taken up, this hellish condition will progress despite all advances in education and economic development. Therefore, those who are thoughtful should take this movement very seriously and try to understand its value. It is not something manufactured by one man or a group of disciples. It is authoritative and age old, based on the Vedic literatures which date back thousands of years.
Niharam eva Bhaskara. Bhaskar refers to the sun. The sun immediately dissipates mist or fog as well as darkness. As stated before, we should try to make the sun of Krishna rise within our hearts. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita also it is stated that Krishna is like the sun and that Maya, the illusory energy, is darkness. यहाँ कृष्ण तहाँ नहीं माया अधिकार. As soon as the sun of Krishna is present, the darkness of Maya immediately dissipates. Without following this process, it is very difficult to overcome the dark portion of darkness, Maya. If we simply teach people to surrender unto Krishna, God, all the fog and mist of illusion will disappear. The method is very simple. Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
The more one goes on chanting, the more the darkness of many lives is dissipated. Chetudarpanam Arjunam, by chanting, one can cleanse the dust from the mirror of his mind and perceive things very distinctly. Thus, one will know what he is, what God is, what this world is, what our relationship with God in the world is, how to live in the world, and what our next life is. Such knowledge is not taught in schools, where one is taught how to manufacture, acquire products for sense gratification. There is always a hard struggle going on involving man's attempt to dominate material nature. However, for every convenience he manages to produce, there is an inconvenience accompanying it. For example, recently some engineers designed an airplane which can fly at a greater speed without danger. When the plane flies, however, it breaks windows all over the city. Our time is thus being wasted in constructing so many devices which give us temporary and artificial convenience at the price of a proportionate amount of inconvenience. This is all part of the law of karma, the law of action and reaction. For whatever we do, there must be a reaction by which we become entangled. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Yajñāर्थāt karmanonyatra loko yam karma bandhanah tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to the material world. Therefore, son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain unattached and free from bondage.
When one acts for sense gratification, work entangles him, whether the work be good or bad. If one works for Krishna Yognat Karmano, he will be free regardless of the possible desirability of his work. Not only Shukadeva Goswami recommend an alright devotional service, but he further says that by devotional service, one's sinful activities will be negated. Every one of us is more or less sinful, for if we were not sinful, we would not have been put into material bodies. As soon as one is free from sinful life, he is liberated and free and transferred to the spiritual world in the spiritual body. The whole process is to clean oneself from the contamination of sinful or material life.
Okay. Shukdev Goswami said, my dear king, those who are sinful can become purified from contamination by tapa adibihi, practicing austerity. Shukdev Goswami also said, however, that no one can become completely purified by executing the process of austerity. There are many examples of yogis who practiced authorities but did not emerge completely pure. Vishwamitra Muni, for example, was a Kshatriya who wanted to become a Brahmana and therefore began to practice austerity. Later on, however, he became a victim of Menaka, a society girl of the heavenly planets. Because Vishwamitra was not pure, he became entangled with her and begot a child. Therefore, it is said that even if one performs austerities and penances, worldly circumstances are so implicating that somehow or other somehow or other they will involve one again and again in the material modes of nature. There are many examples of sannyasis who give up the world, renouncing it as false, saying, "Let me turn to Brahma." But they again become entangled in the work of the world when they set up hospitals and perform philanthropic work and welfare activities. If the world is false, why are they attracted to welfare activities? The philosophy of Krishna consciousness maintains that this world is not false, but that it is temporary. But that is temporary fact.
God created this world and he is true, so how can his creation be false? Because this is the creation of God and God is the absolute truth. This creation is also true. We simply see it otherwise due to illusion. The fact that the world is fact, but it is not temporary fact. A person may claim something within this material world to be his property, but that is a false claim. It is the fact that it is someone's property, but it is God's property. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. This does not mean, however, that the property is false. What is false is the claim to the property, which is based upon the false consciousness that the individual is the proprietor, the master, or God. If everyone desires to be master or proprietor of something, then minister, then president, and then God, when everything else fails, the living entity wants to become God. The tendency is there to want to become the greatest of all, but the fact remains that God is the greatest and the living entity is small compared to him. The smallest is not false and the greatest is not false, but when the small thinks that he is great, that is false.
We understand from Vedic literature that Brahma, the spirit, is Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. Smaller than the atom and Mahato Mahiyan, greater than the greatest. As far as we can conceive, the space which contains the universe is the greatest. But Krishna has shown millions of universes in his mouth. The greatness of God cannot be comprehended by living entities who are part and parcel of God. As living entities, we are very minute, infinitesimal, and God is infinite. Indeed, the magnitude of the individual spirit soul is so microscopic that it cannot be seen. One cannot even imagine it with his material senses. Therefore, it is said that the spirit soul is smaller than the atom. Anoraniyan.
Since the living entities and Krishna, the Supreme Lord, are both spirit, they are qualitatively one. Quantitatively, however, the Lord is great and the living entities are small. This fact can be accepted immediately on the basis of Vedic information. In Brahma Samhita, it is said, Yasyaika Nishvasita Kalam Athavalambhya Jivanti Loma Vilajam Jagat Andanatha. Many millions of universes come out of God's body when he exhales, and they again disappear when he inhales. Simply by his breathing, some millions of universes are created and dissolved. If this is the case, then how can the living entities claim proprietorship over anything? One's position is safe only insofar as he does not falsely declare himself to be God or proprietor. It has become fashionable to claim to be God, and fools accept such claims, but from the Vedic literatures we understand that God is not so cheap.
As long as we are not making puffed up, ego-centered claims, we are already liberated. There is no need to actually seek liberation. But as long as one thinks I am this body, he is not liberated. Liberation means knowing perfectly well that oneself is separate from the body. Therefore, Shukdev Goswami said, Prayashchittam Vimarshanam. Develop your knowledge that will give you relief. Our knowledge is perfect. Our knowledge is perfect when we come to know that we are very small particles. of spiritual sparks, and that God, the Supreme, the greatest spiritual entity, supplies all our necessities. Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman. By knowing ourselves as minute particles, parts and parcels of God, we can understand that our duty is to serve God. God is the center of all creation of the whole universal body. He is the enjoyer, and we are his servitors. As this conception becomes clear, we become liberated. Liberation entails freedom from all false conceptions. It is not that upon liberation, it is not that upon liberation, one acquires 10 hands. In Srimad Bhagavatam, liberation is defined as Muktir Hitvanyatha Rupam. Mukti means to give up, and Anyatha Rupam denotes a false conception of life. This is to say that when one is situated when one is situated in his original constitutional position, having given up all false notions, he is liberated. It is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam that by the acquisition of knowledge, one becomes liberated immediately. That knowledge can be very easily acquired, for it is simple. God is great and I am very small. He is the supreme proprietor supplying all necessities, and I am his servant. Who can challenge this? It is a fact. We are simply under the false impression that we are this or that, and this leads us to the ultimate false impression that we are God. Yet we do not consider that what manner of God we are. A small bodily disorder will send us to the physician. One who claims to be the supreme, therefore, should be understood to have fallen to the last snare of Maya. One who is thus fallen cannot even be liberated, for he is bound by false impressions.
Only when one has attained proper knowledge can be actually liberated. The stage of liberation is called the Brahmabhuta stage. One who knows this stage is characterized by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in this way. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labade param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahma. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity, and in that state he achieves pure devotional service unto me. The joy which follows realization arises from understanding. I was illusioned by false notions for so long. What a fool I was! I was thinking that I was God, but now I can understand that I am God's eternal servant. Upon gaining such realization, one attains liberation and becomes Prasannatma, or jolly, for this is the constitutional position of the living entity. There is no lamentation when one is in pure consciousness, for he knows that he is a small part, a spiritual spark protected by the Supreme Lord. When there is there scope for lamentation, where then there is there scope for lamentation? A small child feels free as long as he knows that his father is there. He thinks my father is standing by me, so I am free. No one can harm me. Similarly, one who surrenders to Krishna, he has complete faith that he is not in danger because Krishna is protecting him. One who is thus surrendered to Krishna is not subject to lamentation or desire, whereas one who is not God conscious simply hankers and laments. He hankers for that which he does not possess. He laments for that which he does not possess, which he did possess but has lost. So a God conscious person is not subject to such misery. If something is lost, he knows that it is God's wish. He thinks God desired this, so it is all right. He does not desire anything, for he knows that all his necessities are being provided by Krishna, the Supreme Father.
As soon as one understands his relationship to God, he realizes universal brotherhood, for he understands that all men and animals, indeed all life itself, are all parts of the supreme whole, and therefore all are equal. Seeing this, one does not envy, exploit, or trouble other living entity. Thus develops thus one who is a devotee of Krishna automatically develops all good qualities, for he is in the proper consciousness. Harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena sati dhavato bahihi. Oh, I have to go. Hare Krishna. Kindly read. मुझे बुला रहे हैं जी।
Okay. When is developed, Krishna consciousness will manifest all qualities of the 10 gods. Indeed, it is stated, Vanscha Kalpatarivascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha. Vaishnava or devotee of Krishna is the notion of mercy to others. He gives the greatest gift to society. So, for society is in dire need of God consciousness. A Vaishnava bestows the priceless gift of the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Simply by chanting this mantra, one can remain in a liberated state. One should not think, however, that the state is simply a state of trance whereby one can remain seated in lotus position in a corner for days on end. No, liberation needs serving. One cannot simply say, now I have dedicated my life to Krishna, let me remain seated in samadhi. The standard of surrender must be maintained by nishevaya, serving. As one serves the Supreme Lord, the Lord reveals himself within the heart. The program of devotional service to the Lord is executed from morning to night. Indeed, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one must engage in devotional service to him 24 hours a day. It is not that we should meditate for 15 minutes and then engage in all kinds of nonsense. The more we serve, the more dedicated to Krishna we become. Therefore, a person should utilize whatever talents he has for Krishna. There are 9 processes of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping the deity in the temple, praying, carrying out orders, serving the Lord as friend, and sacrificing everything for Him. And one should always keep engaged in at least one of these 9 processes. One who is always engaged in Krishna's service never becomes disgusted. Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. Service means to be rendered with Service must be rendered with love, but in the beginning this may be difficult, so one may become disgusted. As one makes progress in Krishna's service, however, he will find it pleasing. This is indicated by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Yet that agre visham iva pranime pariname amritopamam tatsukam satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is like nectar, and which awakens one to self realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.